I'm going to talk about Michael J. Fox today. Michael J. Fox, he's probably the most famous Parkinson's case in the world. I've thought a lot about Michael J. Fox because I kind of known this link between these biomechanics and Parkinson's for quite a while. But I had no smoking gun. But then just recently, a couple weeks back, someone posted in our school community that they were watching a documentary of Michael J. Fox. And between Back to the Future 1 and Back to the Future 3, it seemed like he had some dental work. I decided I would look into it. Now, a little bit of background on Parkinson's. So, this link of this biomechanical stuff to Parkinson's, I've written about it before. I don't think that I'm the one that came up with this link, right? I think that there have been people that have clearly showed this link for several decades now. And I wrote about several of them. One of them is Dr. Brennan Stack, who was using flat plane splints to fix and address Parkinson's and other neurological diseases. And then there was also another dentist in South Korea who's quite famous, who was also curing neurological diseases with essentially what is a mouth guard, just like our Reviv. These people have been doing this for decades. I don't want to take any of their credit. Now, the other thing I want to say is like some people say that I looked it up and said that Parkinson's, like the number one reason was genetics, right? And when you look at the explosion of Parkinson's, it's more than doubled in the last 25 years. I studied evolution. When something doubles in the last 25 years and it grows that quickly, it means that it needs to be better for you. Like the law of natural selection, Charles Darwin. If it's not better for you, it cannot explode due to genetics in the last 25 years, because evolution generally means that like there's mutation, but then natural selection keeps the good genes and gets rid of the bad ones. And obviously, Parkinson's is bad for you, right? It is not going to help you reproduce. I just think like it is impossible that it is genetics, because if you say it's genetics, then you're essentially saying that the whole theory of evolution is wrong. So let me get that out the way. Let's now jump back to Michael J. Fox. So Michael J. Fox, for an older guy like me, 47, I grew up with him because I was a child of the 80s, right? And Michael J. Fox was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood in the 80s. He was on Family Ties, and then Back to the Future came out in 1985, and he was just huge. You know, he was in all kinds of movies like Casualties of War, Teen Wolf, and a lot of other movies. And when I was looking at him, you know, he looked pretty good during the first filming of Back to the Future, which was filmed in 1985. But when he did Casualties of War, which was filmed in 1988, and I have this good profile angle photo of him, you know, he was clearly in a state of collapse. Perhaps something happened between 85 and 88, or perhaps something happened before 85 and it was just impacting him more towards 88. I looked online for this. What I love to see is when you see a picture of persons, you know, ideally you see someone in their braces or in, you know, coming out and saying that they did orthodontics, but a lot of these Hollywood actors don't tell you that they did anything to their teeth, even though they did. And then the second best is if you get pictures of them smiling and you see that obviously their teeth have changed. Neither of these smoking guns were available with Michael J. Fox. Part of the reason is he has a very subtle smile. So like it was very rare at that time that you would see some big Hollywood grin. Usually his mouth was more or less closed. So there was no smoking gun in that way, but I did see this one photo where he has a very high dental angle, right? So the upper arch compared to the lower arch is at this steep angle, which in my view only really develops when you do something artificial to your teeth. So that was a little bit of a smoking gun. When I posted this, someone sent a very interesting photo, which was, in fact, the smoking gun. So apparently he had done braces even earlier. It looked like it was far earlier than 1985. You know, it was probably a few years before that. He looked like he was almost like not even 20 years old. So why did it start impacting him more? Well, a variety of reasons, but I have a feeling he changed his teeth artificially even before 1985 when he did braces. And then it was just kind of a gradual decline because his curve of speed was flattening. Now, the next question is, so if we assume that maybe we're right and that he has Parkinson's and, you know, he's led this tough life because of it for decades now, and it was all because of these braces and dental work. So if you assume that that might be right, could he recover? Could he wear something like our Revive appliance and recover? And my answer to that is, I think so. I do not know whether he can reverse all of the damage, but I have a pretty good feeling that he could. Like, I almost think if he took this far enough, he could become the person that he would have been if none of this shit happened, right? And I talked about this with a doctor friend of mine who's been using a mouth guard for a year and a half, and he very much agreed. So based on his understanding of the human body, and he studied it in school, he thinks that the plasticity of the human body would recover from anything, as long as you had these biomechanics correct. I hope this, maybe in some direct or indirect form, makes it to Michael J. Fox sometime. I'd love to see him try this and hopefully get better. And beyond him, I hope that we should be getting rid of neurological disease. I have a feeling neurological disease is these biomechanics, and therefore they're so easy to get rid of. And you don't need fancy doctors and neurologists and things like this. And then people who have those problems, don't waste their life away the way someone like Michael J. Fox, what he could have done if he didn't have this horrible disease. That probably sounds crazy to some of you, but one day I don't think it will be.